The movie begins in a darkly lit nightclub where the deep blue shadows of the nightclub pulsed with an ethereal glow as the bewitching melodies of the woman filled the smoky air. All eyes were fixed on the stage where she swayed and spun, her form adorned in shimmering silks, accentuating every mesmerizing movement. Shireen is sitting close to the stage, watching the woman intently, and gives her a seductive smile, winking at the dancer. The scene changes and we are taken to a girls' high school where Shireen, her friend Atafe, and several other girls are lined up. After attendances were checked, Shireen and Atafe were ordered to stay behind while the rest of the girls went back to class. Calling Shireen forward, the teacher comments on her questionable characteristics and reminds her that she was late on payment. Covering for her friend, Atafe explains that Shireen had lent her the money and pulls out cash from her bag. Stopping her immediately, the teacher tells them to give it to her in the office and instructs them to go to class. After school, Atafe goes home and begins to practice identifying musical notes with her father, and is surprised when her brother Mehran, who had been in therapy for severe drug use, walks into the room. Happy to see him, Shireen and her father Firuz go to embrace him, welcoming him back. Firuz tries to mention that there was an opening in the music department of Mehran's school, but the young man refuses, telling her father that music wasn't for him anymore. The following day, Ataf and Shireen go to a day party, taking off their hijabs and changing their clothes into something revealing before going inside. After introducing her to the host and her friend Joey, Atafet takes Shireen to the other room and they begin to dance. After grabbing a few drinks and taking some drugs, the two girls are feeling loose and decide to head out of the party, drawing graffiti on the walls. The uncomfortable Shireen was feeling relaxed now that the drugs and alcohol were hitting, and watched as Atafet broke a car window to get her a pretty handbag. The following morning at Atafet's house, Mehran is forced to pee in front of his father, who is adamant about continuing the drug tests despite Mehran's insistence that he was better. Taking the cup from him, Firuz hands Mehran some money, telling him that it was his weekly allowance and that he needed to bring all the receipts. When Atafe arrives, Firuz kisses her on the forehead and tells his children that he needs to go to work before heading out. When they're left alone, Atafe tries to talk to Mehran, but he snaps at her, assuming that she is trying to patronize him. Disappointed with her brother, Atafe walks out, leaving him alone. Later, Mehran goes to the mosque to pray and is annoyed when he sees a drug addict begging for some alms. The man kneeling next to him feels sorry for the young man and gives him his lunchbox, telling him that he knows a place that could help him with his situation. Once the beggar leaves, Mehran voices his annoyance that even their mosque is being plagued by addicts, but the older man assures him that the house of God is for everyone. After a brief conversation, Mehran and the older man introduce themselves to each other, discussing more about their religion. At her home, Shireen is enjoying herself while cleaning the house with her aunt when they're interrupted by her uncle, who tells her to quickly get dressed because a suitor has come to speak with her. Dressing up decently, Shireen makes everyone tea and presents it to them and sits on the couch quietly. The following day, Atafa and her family go to the beach for a family day out, and Atafa brings Shireen with her. After spending an enjoyable day, Shireen watches the family with envy, wishing she had a close-knit family like that. That night, while sleeping on twin beds, Shireen begins to cry softly and is comforted by Atafa, who crawls into bed with her. While being held in her arms, Shireen suggests that they run away to Dubai and that Atafi can sing while Shireen manages her career. When Atafi jokingly tells her she is crazy, Shireen continues to cry, devastated by the way her life would turn out. The following morning, Atafa wakes up Shireen by caressing her body, igniting an unexpected flame. Turning around, Shireen returns the gesture by kissing her friend on the lips, and the two fall into a passionate makeout. Having spent the weekend by the sea, the family returns to the city and their regular lives. A few days after their return, Shireen goes to Atafe's house to see her friend and is made to wait in the living room. While she's waiting, she decides to try out the piano, attempting to play a classical song. Seeing her struggle, Mehran comes up behind her, leaning intimately to her neck, and helps her play a few notes before walking away. That night, Mehran has a dream about kissing Shireen and wakes up gasping, feeling like he has sinned. Hoping to fulfill his newfound passion for his faith, Mehran begins to work as a prayer in his mosque and decides to buy his sister a birthday gift with his first paycheck. When he goes home, he finds Atafa and Shireen dancing around in her room, singing along along to their favorite song. When he mentions the gift he has gotten her, she reminds him that it has already been 3 weeks since her birthday and ignores him. Feeling sad, Mehran leaves the gift by the nightstand and heads out. Once they're left alone, the two begin to fantasize about the relationship they could have if they were free, prompting Shireen to initiate another intimate moment where she kisses Atafe all over her body. That night, Shireen and Atafe go out to meet their friends Joey and Hossein while discussing the movie Hossein wants to produce, which holds the idea of gay people being prosecuted in Iran. During the conversation, Shireen is offended by something Joey says and decides to leave. Outside, Shireen hops into a taxi and is shocked when the night takes a sudden frightening turn when the driver sexually molests her by grabbing her feet and pleasuring himself while she watches in disgust. The unexpected events visibly change Shireen, making her a heavy drinker and urging her to become more sexually active. One night, while enjoying themselves in the club, Shireen and Atafe are seen by Mehran, who doesn't accept the lewd acts he had noticed on his sister and her friend. Suddenly, chaos begins to ensue as the morality police raid the club, instigated by Mehran, who had led the police to the secret venue. Shireen and her friends can escape capture, while Mehran beats up an old friend after waiting for him in the Ally, blaming him for his past mistakes. The following morning, while having breakfast with her family, Atafe faces scorn from her extremist brother, who calls her unclean and refuses to eat the chicken she has shared with him. Upset at his cruel wording, Atafe calls him a pig and walks away. Suspicious of his sister, Mehran sets up cameras all over the house, making sure to keep an eye on Atafe and Shireen. His obsession with Shireen steadily increases and starts to become unhealthy. That afternoon, Atafe and Shireen meet up with their friends to work on Hossein's move while indulging in alcohol. After working for several hours, Atafe attempts to drive Shireen back home, but the two girls are unexpectedly arrested by the morality police. After being detained, Shireen and Atafe undergo several demeaning questioning and physical examinations, crying in fear through the process. The following morning, Firuz arrives at the police station and is upset when he finds out what has been done to his daughter. Telling Firuz to sit down, Officer Muhammad asks him why his 16-year-old daughter was not a virgin. Having no answer for the man, Firuz asks Muhammad how much it would take to buy his silence. In the other room, Shireen is waiting for her uncle with tears running down her face, frightened of what he is going to do to her. Seeing her in distress, Mehran sits next to her and tells her that he will be with her until her uncle arrives. Trying to gain her trust, he also tells her that he was able to handle everything for her and that she wouldn't even need to go to court. After paying the required amount, Firuz picks up his distressed daughter and drives them home. On the way, Firuz tells her that he has forgiven her that time and warns her not to repeat those actions. When she arrives home, Shireen finds her uncle sitting in the living room and he sternly tells her that it is time for her to get married, warning that there won't be any more discussion. A few days later, Atafe and her father get ready in the morning to go on a 4-hour hike. After walking several kilometers, the father and daughter duo finally rest on top of the hill. While they rest, Firuz shares stories of his youth with his daughter, telling her about all the things they used to do when they were young. The two then begin a heated argument about Atafe's freedom, making Firuz feel like she is disrespecting him. Deciding to return home, Firuz tells his daughter to go on ahead without him. When Atafe returns from her hike, she finds her family gathered with Shireen and her uncle, indicating the issue of marriage between Shireen and Mehran. Triggered by the unexpected revelation, Atafe goes on a joyride, drinking and smoking without a care in the world. Suddenly, she begins to hear siren noises and is soon pulled aside by the morality police who detain her once more. After they rescue her for the second time, Atafe's parents sit her down and begin talking to her about her issues, but they are disappointed by her continued careless demeanor. Once they're left alone, Atafe's mother, Azar, begs her daughter to be more mindful of her actions, telling her that she needs to do something of worth with her life. Several weeks later, Shireen and Mehran's joyous families organize a magnificent wedding ceremony to celebrate their union. However, amidst the festivities, Atafe Atafe's heart sinks with a profound sense of sadness. She can't help but feel as though she has lost her dear friend, now seemingly confined within the confines of matrimony. The next morning, an undeniable tension fills the air as Atafe and Shireen join their family for breakfast. Despite Shireen's persistent efforts to engage her new sister-in-law in conversation, Atafe remains resolute in her silence, intentionally avoiding any interaction with her. Mehran continues to spy on the family with his secret camera, still suspecting something between his wife and her old friend. Later that afternoon, Mehran leads his bride and the entire family to a plot of land he had purchased, intending to build a future home for himself and Shireen. However, Atafe's heart sinks with disappointment upon hearing Mehran's plans, prompting her to walk away in solitude. Shireen, sensing her friend's distress, musters the courage to request permission from Mehran to speak with Atafe, only to be met with his refusal. That evening, Shireen patiently bides her time until her husband drifts into slumber. Silently, she slips out of bed and tiptoes towards Atafe's room. With utmost tenderness, Shireen rouses Atafe from her sleep, confessing her enduring love and explaining the necessity of marrying Mehran to secure her freedom from prison. Shireen then shares a passionate kiss with Atafe, who initially resists but eventually succumbs to it. After that night, the two friends gradually rekindle their former intimacy. One evening, amidst a family dinner where they gather around the piano and harmonize in song, Ferouz asks Shireen to sing the song she had recently written. However, Mehran addresses his father sternly as he acknowledges his wife's undeniable talent, but adamantly forbids her from performing in public. This sudden transformation of his son into a religious fanatic upsets Ferouz, but Azar calms his distress by assuring him that she will sing with her daughter. That night, in the privacy of their room, Mehran angrily rapes Shireen, recounting everything she had said to Atafe. He then collapses next to her and begins to cry, asking her why he couldn't be enough for her. In hopes of calming him down, Shireen begins to kiss him. The next day, Atafe feels strange as she passes the guest room and witnesses her father praying with Mehran in an unfamiliar manner. Curiosity piques her interest, leading her to sneak into her brother's room and search his computer. The shocking truth is revealed as she discovers that her brother has been spying on them. Disgusted by what she had seen, Atafe gets up early the following day and purchases a ticket for Dubai. She then returns home and tries to communicate with Shireen, but the frightened girl refuses to indulge Atafe, worried that her husband will catch them through the camera. Provoking Atafe by questioning her fears, Shireen instigates a response that drives Atafe to approach the camera and dismantle it. In a moment filled with intense emotion, they exchange a passionate kiss, collapsing onto the bed. As they lie there, Atafe proposes that they leave the country, only to be met with Shireen's refusal. Overwhelmed by this rejection, Atafe gathers her belongings and departs from the house, ready to start her life in Dubai. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.